intelligent and willing to open up to me about their problems. I felt like a proud mother after every class moved on to second grade with high marks. I was loving my job and doing great at it. The holiday season was the time I look forward to the most. I'll go all out with my decorations and focus on my lessons on the history of these holidays and the stories that sprouted from them. Every year I would do my best to make it better than the last. This year around Christmas time, I spent weeks preparing for the Christmas party that signaled the start of winter break. I spent money from my own pocket on decorations and snacks that were sure to delight my students. It wasn't going to be like any other Christmas party with few activities and snacks and plopping the kids down for a movie the whole time. No, I made sure these kids would have a Christmas party to remember. The day came and my little doe-eyed students marveled at the tinsel and garlands that ran across the ceiling and the windows. They drooled over the bowls of chips, pretzels, and candy that I had set out on the table. Each one of them wore a set of pajamas from home, and I greeted each one at the classroom door with a warm smile and chipper mood. Once everyone was seated, I announced that to begin the party, we would watch a video that I had personally put together. Inserting the tape, I dimmed the lights and stepped to the back of the room. My image appeared on the screen and my students giggled with glee. As my students were focused on the screen, I went about preparing the next part of the party. TV Me was doing a step-by-step instruction on how to make gingerbreadmen, making sure to do goofy things to keep the little ones entertained. Once the video was over, I turned on the lights and the students' attention drew back to me. Their eyes grew wide at the sight of rows and rows of bare gingerbread man. I ushered them one by one to grab a cookie and carefully bring it back to their desk. Once this was done, I went around placing bowls of sprinkles and icing at all their tables. I even set out a set of piping tools in case some wanted to try it. With that, the students went to work decorating their gingerbread man and fantasizing the wonderful things Santa would bring them. I went around the room helping any that asked and getting things ready for the Christmas movie. After a while, many students had finished their cookie by either decorating it or devouring it. I started the movie and went about handing out trays of snacks for them. They were all glued to the screen, snacking noisily on their Christmas goodies, all but one. I noticed that Holly still sat at her desk, hunched over her gingerbread in deep concentration. Her long dark hair hid what she was doing, but I could see her little hands delicately holding a piping tube and carefully squeezing icing onto the cookie. I didn't want to disturb her creative freedom, so I quietly set down her tray of snacks on the corner of her desk and then went about cleaning. The movie seemed to be over in a flash, and a bell marked the end of the school day. Some of my students had fallen asleep during the film, having fallen from their sugar high. Now they excitedly went to their cubbies and collected their things to go home. One by one, parents came to the classroom door and whisked their child away. I continued to clean piles of spilled sprinkles and bowls of sticky icing, but made sure to wish each student a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I was alone in my classroom when I noticed that Holly had left her gingerbread man on the desk. I went over to it and set down the bag of rubbish I had been carrying. My brows furrowed as I surveyed the scene laid before me. Not only did she decorate her cookie, she had also drawn a background for it on a blank white sheet of paper. I could recognize the scene of my classroom, drawn in that scratchy way that children draw. The gingerbread cookie was placed beside a slightly crooked desk, and an inch of familiarity scratched at the back of my head. The cookie was dressed with a green long-sleeve shirt and a white skirt. On its wrist were holly bracelets, and it had thin wavy brown hair. I was unnerved at the sight of a messy red line across the cookie's neck, and turned to tell myself it was just a messily drawn necklace. The eyes were black X's, and a deep frown was set on his face. Drawn on the left side of the paper where the back of the classroom was pictured was a tall black image of a man. It was lean and had long spidery fingers. its upper body bent to the side, almost appearing to look like a candy cane. Its white face had nothing but a black pointed smile, and I could feel a shiver run down my back at the sight of it. In its right hand, it held a dripping, bloody knife. I went to brush the cookie and drawing into the trash bag when a cold realization hit me. My eyes ran up the sleeves of my dark green shirt and then traced down to the white pencil skirt I was wearing. My heart started to pound in my chest as I looked at the holly bracelets on both of my wrists. My eyes started back to the cookie, then to the figure standing behind it. My blood ran cold as I heard the sound of a cupboard door opening up behind me. Okay. That was a very suspenseful story. So, I'm guessing at the end there, the teacher was living or playing out what Holly had drawn on the paper with the image of a man, the dark image of a man, I'm guessing, that appeared. And then I don't know necessarily what came out of the cupboard or the cupboard door. It says, my blood ran cold as I heard the sound of a cupboard door opening up behind me. So I don't know if like another thing was coming to get her or if it was Holly, because Holly sounds a little bit possessed. Okay. Yeah, I really like this story. Like I said, very, very suspenseful. And once again, it is by Lone Donut, and I will be tagging that down below in the description box. And yeah, so let's move on to the next story. This next story is by DW Dance Lover 24, and this story is called Santa's Debt Collector. When I was a child, I remember experiencing something very strange at Christmas time. It all began a week before Christmas Eve. I was 9 years old at the time, and I was very excited for Santa to come in a week and leave me all kinds of goodies. That year, I remember I really wanted a remote control helicopter, and I asked my mother if she thought Santa would bring me one while she was tucking me into bed that night. She just laughed and said, "You'll just have to wait and see. Now go to sleep, you have school tomorrow." I don't remember when I nodded off, but the next thing I do remember was waking up because of a loud noise. My room was mostly still dark when I woke up, some of it being illuminated by the moon as I sat up in bed to try and look around my room to figure out where the noise came from. I realized it was strangely cold in my room, despite it being winter. Then that's when I saw it, standing there in my room a few feet away from my bed, some type of creature. It had a human shape, but it was off in some way. It appeared very gangly and was so thin it could have been a skeleton. Its flesh was white and was splotched with something in a greeny brown color, maybe mold. It had a very sparse but long beard and piercing blue eyes. It was wearing what looked like a Santa suit, but it was old and worn and was stained all over. When it spoke to me, I noticed its teeth were yellow and rotted. A foul odor smelling of something rotting came from its mouth. "Don't scream," it said in a raspy old man's voice. Who are you?" I stammered. "Me. I work for Santa. I'm his debt collector." "What? I never heard of you. Hey, do you think all those shiny new toys are free? They all come at some cost, and I came to collect it." How come I've never seen you before then? You were too young to still help pay back the price, but now you are old enough." "But I don't have any money. I'm just a kid." "Don't worry about that," he chuckled. "I don't look for money as payment because I can never be seen by adults. Payment is collected in other forms. I will come back one night, soon before Christmas Eve, to get my payment from you. If I don't get my payment, Santa won't come. Are we clear?" He said straight in my face. "Yes," I gulped. "Good," it said while backing away as an ominous grin spread across its face. Then almost magically, it was morning. I wasn't sure if what I had witnessed was a dream until I was getting out of bed and noticed a strange muddy footprint on my carpet. That day at school, I couldn't concentrate on any of my classes. I was worried about when it would come back and what it would want as a payment. It had never actually told me what the payment would be, so all day I was agonizing over it, terrified that I wouldn't have any presents on Christmas morning. At lunch, my friend Bill had asked me what was wrong. I got excited because he was at the same age as me, so maybe Santa's debt collector had visited Bill and remembered to tell him what the payment would be. So I told Bill everything that had happened the previous night, asked him if he was also visited by the debt collector and if he knew what the payment was. Bill just laughed and said, "That's a funny story. There's no such thing as Santa's debt collector." I froze as a feeling of horror and ice washed over me. Had I just dreamed it all? I thought to myself, yeah, probably, but wait. What about those footprints on my carpet? Maybe the debt collector doesn't think Bill's old enough yet and hasn't visited him. Or am I just being crazy and I just dream it all up? I know. When I get home, I'll ask my mom. She'd know because she would have already gotten visited by him when she was a kid. So as soon as I got home that day, I told all of what happened to my mom and asked her if it was real and if so, when he would come back and what the payment was. "Oh, sweetie," she said as she put her hand on my arm, "there is no such thing as Santa's debt collector. It was probably all just a dream. Now you go to your room to start your homework and I'll bring you up a snack in a few minutes." So I figured she was right and I had just dreamt the whole thing up. I went up to my room to start my homework, and when I saw the muddy footprints, I decided they were from me and I forgot I had made them or just didn't notice when I did. Up until this day, I had completely forgotten about the whole incident. That was up until today when my daughter asked me if Santa's debt collector was real. On the inside, I felt the same feeling of horror and ice wash back over me as I suddenly remembered the whole thing. But I told her not to worry about it. I have no clue why it never came back all those years ago and why now it is. Maybe because I told my mom and it said it could never be seen by an adult. So maybe since my daughter told me and I'm an adult now, she'll be safe. Or maybe since it visited me and never came back, that doesn't matter. I don't know. What I do know is that I'll be ready this time and I'll be waiting for it every night in my daughter's room until Christmas Day to make sure it doesn't come back, and that if it does, my daughter is safe. Okay. This story right here, the part where it says, I don't remember where it was, but the part where it described the figure of the thing, the creature in its room, is really giving me Game of Thrones vibes. If you ever seen Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. Darn, I forgot the name of the creatures, but you know what I'm talking about. They were the dead, but like the kings of the dead. They had the blue eyes, like the white skin and white beard. That literally reminded me of them. To be honest, I was really hoping that this ending would like end kind of bad. Like, I don't know, I was kind of hoping that the debt collector came back and like took him. I don't know, I love horror stories. But yes, really enjoyed this story as well. And once again, this is by DW Dance Lover 24, and I will be linking that down below as well.